We are April and Scott, creators of NaughtyGym.com, and this is The Naughty Gym Show.
For years, we've been fitness and nutrition coaches to thousands of people through our commercial gyms and online platform. We've also spent nearly a decade in an ever-evolving open relationship.
This show brings together two of our biggest passions, fitness and sex positivity. Our mission is to maximize the physical and mental health of anyone brave enough to explore relationship structures that run counter to societal norms.
We have demolished our old ways of thinking about relationships, and from that rubble, built a life full of happiness, adventure, and vitality. And now we want to help you do the same.
So hop on the treadmill, start the show, and let us teach you how to never stop playing. Welcome back to the Naughty Gym Show. I'm your host, April, and this is my grandfather, Scott.
Right. Those are getting better.
It gets better and better every week. We are happy that you're joining us. We have an incredibly special guest here with us today. Tell us a little bit about who we have with us.
Well, we have Paul Raker, who's and I never get this, it's vice president, executive vice president, something like that, right?
No, you're giving me too much credit. Just vice president. Yeah. Okay. Operations and communications.
All right. Of the Out Foundation, which is an organization we have partnered with for a major charity program. And we're going to talk about what the Out Foundation does. But before we do that, I was going to give a little brief intro to how this sort of came about. In 2019, we still owned two brick and mortar CrossFit gyms here in
Alabama.
North Alabama. And we hosted the first Outwad in the state of Alabama. Now, at that time, that was I think the primary maybe fundraising mechanism for the Out Foundation. And it was an effort for local brick and mortar gyms to demonstrate that they are a safe space for any LGBTQ person to come and work out and be, included, accepted, all that stuff. We did that, and of course, there was backlash considering we're in Alabama in a small conservative town. We lost members over it. It was a great success for us. We had a lot of people there. We were on the news about it, but we did lose members. In 2020, we launched our own new business, which is, what we do now full time, called Naughty Gym. Once that became public, which we tried to hide it for a long time, but as all things do, it got publicized. And we lost, over a period of about 2 months after that becoming public, we lost half of our members. So we understand, better than maybe a lot of people, how in the fitness community, being something other than what society considers the default, whether that's, a process of heteronormativity, mononormativity, what it can be like trying to feel safe, comfortable, and accepted inside a fitness space, which is what the Out Foundation's primary goal is to help facilitate the removal of those sort of uncomfortable and maybe societal constructs that make it difficult for somebody in the LGBTQ community to feel safe in a fitness facility.
I would love to add real quick, briefly, that while we did lose some members, we were successful in creating a safe place. We gained members that were in the LGBTQ community that did not have a home gym or a place in our town that they felt safe working out. And that was such a joy to see them be able to come into our community and feel safe, accepted, and loved.
Yeah, and really over a period of a couple of months and maybe a year or two after that, we really felt like we had become a beacon in the community, particularly in fitness, but just for people to know that this organization does support us, and it was kind of nice to be that light inside of otherwise very conservative community.
Right.
So we have Paul Raker with us from the Out Foundation. And Paul, will you just give us a brief synopsis of what the Out Foundation is doing today?
Sure. Our mission as an organization is, as you all said very eloquently, to remove barriers that block the LGBTQ plus community from accessing health, fitness, and wellness. We see those barriers as being as simple as not seeing your gender represented on an intake form to locker room, restroom usage inside facilities, to having workouts that are geared towards experiences that you've had as an individual. And so those really run the gamut. And we help over 400 gyms across the country currently in identifying and removing those barriers through three really key signature programs. Our oldest program, and the program through which really we were founded, going back to many years ago when we were just a CrossFit meetup group, is the Out Athlete program. And that's a program through which we sponsor scholarship young queer individuals who want to be fit and healthy. We use the term athlete very broadly, whether they're getting back into their fitness journey, whether they want to be some type of semi-professional or professional athlete. We offer them a year of support through gym membership, nutrition counseling, mental health counseling, and then the networking that they get as being part of a cohort of out athletes that we bring in each year. And to date, we've sponsored over 100 athletes over the course of the last 4 years as part of the program, and currently have a cohort of 20 athletes that are going through the program this year. The second program that we offer is called Out AIM, which is an acronym that stands for Athletics Inclusion Movement. That's really the training and education arm of our organization, where we work with these local gyms, really boots on the ground through consultancy and training on how they can, through their policies, practices, and procedures, make sure that they are welcoming of the LGBTQ plus community. We have a curriculum of over a dozen trainings currently that center around different topics, all of which represent some of those barriers that we face or some of the issues that local gym operators or trainers may run into in terms of working with our community, and how to, in real time and real life examples, remove those barriers. We also have a program called Out Health, which is where we provide resources to the LGBTQ plus community that center around issues that disproportionately affect our community. Thinking about, for an example, gender reassignment surgery. We're not a medical organization. We don't have anyone on our staff who is a doctor or anything, but what we do like to do is provide those health and fitness resources to prepare individuals, in this example, for instance, to prepare for gender reassignment surgery or to recover from a surgery. And so what's within our sphere of influence in terms of providing those resources to be healthy and well is what we provide throughout health. So that's the short version of kind of what we do as an organization to help remove those barriers for our community.
Well, I remember we went on the news when we were going to host that Outwad back in 2019. And I remember the news posted the clip of us in the interview on their Facebook page, and it just went ballistic. There were hundreds and hundreds of comments, and I would guess that 80% of them were negative.
Yeah.
One of the things that people were asking over and over was, I don't understand what the problem is. An LGBTQ person can go to any gym they want to, probably, and get a membership just like I can. Why do we have to be raising money for these people who don't support our values here in the South?
Right.
Can you give some more concrete examples
to what those barriers might look like?
What is really the issue that an LGBTQ person might face when they're trying to go to Planet Fitness or
any gym?
Your gym.
Yeah. So I've been with the Out Foundation now just over a year, and last year I started in June, and we went to the CrossFit Games in August, and somebody came up to our booth and asked a very similar question. We were there sharing the work that we do, and that's always the beginning of the pitches. What's our mission statement? And we talk about removing barriers. And they looked us square in the eye and asked us the same question. What barriers are you talking about? And to someone who is, cisgender heterosexual person that has, and for me, like being a cisgendered white man, I have a lot of privilege as well in that I can go into spaces and not have to worry about how I present or how I may be disenfranchised in some way. But I think for the LGBTQ plus community in particular, it starts with what I mentioned at the beginning of the first question is that there are folks who are non-binary or do not identify with the gender that they were assigned at birth and walk into a fitness space for the first time and they're given a form where their gender isn't represented on the form. Maybe they don't identify as either explicitly male or female. And so what does that conversation with the front desk staff look like at that point? I mean, even that in and of itself can be a negative experience for somebody who is living in that space. Fitness to me is intimidating enough, I think, for a lot of people. I left a career in the YMCA and we sort of cater to what we would call health seekers, which were people who don't work out regularly or are intimidated by fitness in some way, shape, or form, just not knowing what to do. And I think for the LGBTQ plus community, having to worry about whether or not that space is going to be supportive of them as their authentic self is a form of just continuously needing to come out in a sense. Am I going to be entering a space where I'm able to be my authentic self as an LGBTQ plus person? Could I wear this shirt to the gym that I work out in and not be ostracized or feel like I'm criticized? The big piece, I think, for our community in particular is around locker room and restroom usage for our trans siblings, as an example. Wondering if I am going to have a safe space to change or shower or use the restroom, and whether or not that's going to cause conflict with either the staff or the members. That can be something that would cause someone to say, well, I'm not going to the gym at all, and then just thinking about, whether or not the workouts are going to be properly tailored to where I am in my journey as an LGBTQ plus person. If I am a trans individual who's transitioning from female to male, as an example, and I wear a binder, am I safe to tell my trainer that? If I have just gone through top surgery, as an example, is it a safe space to tell my trainer that? Am I going to have a trainer who's competent in the knowledge of making sure that the workouts are safe for me having gone through these different procedures? Things like HIV and AIDS disproportionately affects the LGBTQ plus community and comes with a set of medical issues that people are not always comfortable sharing. And so knowing that I am in a space where I'm valued as an individual and able to live in my authentic self, whatever that looks like, and um, whatever part of our community I identify with, is very important. And I think for the gyms and the gyms that we talk to, that can be as simple as hanging a rainbow flag in front of your door, or hosting a fundraiser like you all did. You automatically identify yourself as a space that's welcoming and competent and prepared to help us in this journey of a healthy and fit LGBTQ plus community. And one of the credos that we use as an organization is that a healthy LGBTQ plus community is a thriving LGBTQ plus community. There are so many through lines, and I'm sure that you all know and have other guests on that talk about it in terms of physical fitness and mental health and fitness. And for our community, that's another thing that really disproportionately affects us because of all of the trauma that we have in coming out and being disenfranchised and so many things, physical fitness could be literally life-saving for a lot of LGBTQ plus individuals, and having a space that is welcoming and competent of those issues is so important.
Yeah, that is such, I get emotional just hearing about this because it's been life-saving for me, just being able to get in the gym and my mental health. And I can't imagine facing all of those additional barriers, knowing how difficult it is to start a fitness journey in the first place. And then walking into a place that doesn't feel safe or feels, even threatening, how drastically that can, just cause harmful effects in your life.
Yeah.
Well, and it's hard for somebody who is, cisgendered or fits into whatever it is their community feels like is the normal pattern, and which we should get away from that word entirely. But it affects. It's hard to understand how difficult it is to live in a community when you don't feel comfortable being yourself. And you can't explain it to somebody who lives inside that community who does fit under that umbrella of whatever their normativity looks like, because they don't have to deal with that issue. Even simple things for us. Now that everybody, or most everybody in our community, knows who we are and what we're about, just going to a high school football game to support one of her sons feels almost ostracizing, because people don't say hi to us much anymore. People don't sit next to us. We took a video a couple of years ago where the bleachers were packed, except the bleachers directly behind, next to, and in front of us. We could prop our legs up on the row in front of us, and we could lean back if we want to. That doesn't maybe sound like a big deal. Somebody may say, well, you made your bed, now lie in it. But that's the problem, is that we can't be open about who we are and feel comfortable. And like you say, hanging a rainbow flag on the door may be all that somebody needs to go, all right, inside these walls, it looks like I'm going to feel safe, but I can't make that assumption about the other gym down the street. It's not with me to know.
Yeah, and just having that 1 hour a day where you can go and sweat and feel safe and be able to drop your guard and be your true self in a community that is just like, hell yeah, welcome. We're glad you're here. Support you while you're here, help you move towards your goals, get those extra boosts of endorphins, those feel good, dopamine, serotonin levels up. So vital for your mental health.
Right. And it's one less thing that you have to worry about. Fitness and working out and finding that time is hard enough just in the day to day for everybody. Having to also worry about whether or not the person in the class next to you or the trainer is supportive of you as an individual is just an added layer that you shouldn't have to worry about, And so I think it's so important. And there are the things that I tell gyms all the time is that it doesn't have to be earth shattering or proprietary information. It really is as simple as a sticker or honoring people's pronouns, or just things that seem so small mean a lot to folks who are on that journey and on the path of trying to live their authentic lives. And it feels simple, but it could mean the world to them, And so they're small but important things that you can do.
And we've heard that over and over, through the years, especially after it became public knowledge that we were an affirming and inclusive gym, that people will come in and say, it just feels good to know I can walk in here and not have to worry about the same stuff I worry about out in town. And our gym culture and community reflected that. We had a lot of LGBTQ members. We had trans members. We had a different look to our community the other gyms in town had. And it was kind of a source of pride for us, but also a sense of relief knowing that we were at least on the path trying to course correct. That you see in the gym community.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and that's the thing, you all talked about losing members and the negative comments on Facebook when the event was posted on the news. And when I was with the YMCA, we had similar issues when we would support Pride Month or do different things, depending on the Y that I was working at. And I would always say, the types of people who react negatively or threaten to cancel their membership because we celebrated Pride or Black History Month or whatever it was, those aren't the type of people you want in your gym anyway. And, it's almost a weeding out in a sense that now you do have a group of people who match the values that you have as a gym, as an organization, when you're talking about places like the YMCA. And so, that's what you want. That's what you want. And yes, it does suck on the business side of things. It absolutely sucks to see memberships walking out the door. But what you don't realize is that you're also opening yourself up to a separate community that potentially was never coming because they didn't know what your values were as a gym. And so there's a trade-off there. And I think too often gyms and organizations get analysis paralysis where they're afraid of, well, if I do this, then I'm going to lose this many members and that translates to this many dollars. But think about who you've brought into the fold that may not have been had you not hosted that event as well.
That was one thing that we really decided to lean into hard was when we lost those members. It was almost a relief that, okay, good. They needed to go. They are not a fit. We had our mission, and our mission statement was to be an inclusive community. And if they're not on board with that mission, then there's 40 other gyms in town that they can go to, but we're not it. We've ended our life, our friendships like that too. If you are offended by what we support, then you're not our tribe.
Yeah, exactly.
Which has included losing a lot of our extended family.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
So we'll get to, we've got this big project that we're doing together called PrideFlex. That's going to be a fundraising effort for the Out Foundation. We're going to get to that in a little bit, but I wanted to talk about and see if there were any other concrete examples that you have of where, so that people can put some teeth on this, of really egregious stories of things that may have happened to somebody when they tried to go to a gym. Maybe not somebody personally, but somebody that, stories that have circulated around the Out Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And while you're thinking about it, I wanted to highlight one that happened not to us, but, within the community that we were part of. And that was the CrossFit community a few years ago. During Pride Month, and this was about the Out Foundation, at least partially, a gym, I think maybe in Indiana or Illinois, was going to host an outwide event.
Yeah.
And some members, and I may get some of the details of this wrong, but the details aren't really all that important, but members kicked up a fuss about hosting that event there, similar to what some members did when we did it. But I think it got a little more vocal at this particular gym. And the owners decided to go ahead and cancel it because it was creating problems. And it is.
Right.
You own a CrossFit gym, the average CrossFit gym is like between 80 and 120 members. And if you start getting worried that you're about to lose 20 or 30 of those members, that's a huge cut into your revenue.
Yeah.
When you live in a conservative community, and I think this was a fairly conservative area, it's just a scary thing. You're trying to pay the bills and feed your kids, and you're having to live too.
Yeah.
And so they decided to cancel that event to avoid that problem. Well, then some in the LGBTQ community started highlighting this problem. Hey, you can't even host an event celebrating people who are a little bit different than you without other members complaining. One of the higher executives inside of CrossFit, somebody that we know a little bit because they're from our area, posted on their personal, at that time, Twitter account that they supported, because they were, this person was not only an executive of CrossFit, but they were a very outspoken Christian. And they posted their support for that gym pulling that event.
Yeah.
So that they weren't forced into doing something that they felt was sinful or against their religion, and then tagged CrossFit, which I think ultimately ended up being the problem. So CrossFit spoke out against this comment and fired that individual who was kind of like the public affairs officer for CrossFit.
Yeah.
They were very visible within the community. And so this whole problem, reared its ugly head again, that some people don't like, let's just say it as it is, some people just don't like gay people. And so they complained, and then an event got canceled, and it was all through the news. And, it was just another problem that highlights the need for what the Out Foundation does.
Yeah. You're right. The name of the gym was CrossFit Infiltrate. It was in Indiana. And this obviously predates me because I just passed the year mark. But it's the reason why we call our Pride fundraising now Infiltrate with Love, was because of that. Because of that whole sort of event itself. And it's not that gym itself is not open anymore. But the details that you shared are exactly right, as I know them, in terms of them getting blowback on doing a Pride event and then canceling it just because they weren't prepared for said blowback. I think that story in itself brings up another point that I bring up with gyms all the time, is that there does need to be, it's not enough to decide that I'm supportive of the LGBTQ plus community as a gym owner, and so I want to host an event, and that's that. There has to be some foundational work and some groundwork laid. When I think back to being an executive director of a YMCA, as an example, I never doubted that myself and the team that I had built, in terms of the directors who reported to me, that I had built a culture of inclusion in that sort of sphere of influence. It was outside of that the groundwork needed to be laid, though, before we were able to go public with some things, because a lot of times it's the frontline staff, the trainers, the front desk staff. Those are the people who are engaging in the conversations with people who are either upset about whatever's going on or whatever cause we're supporting, or supportive of it. And are they prepared to have those conversations? Was this gym decided, probably in good faith, that they wanted to host a Pride event, but weren't prepared on the back end to sort of engage in conversations with folks who disagreed? And that starts to snowball. My biggest worry as a operator of a gym with the Y was that a member was going to engage in a conversation with a staff member at the front desk that wasn't prepared to have that conversation in the way that I or one of my directors would. And so the reason why our training and consultancy is so important to these gyms is because we're having that conversation with their frontline staff to give them the tools to engage in it and to start to build that culture from the ground up, to where no matter who you come in contact with in that gym, they're all singing from the same songbook. They all have the same sort of values, and you start to build that culture in your gym. And so it's important that the groundwork be laid. And I wasn't here for that event in particular, but I feel like when I hear about it and when I have heard about it, I'm always like, what could we have done, as an example, to sort of lay that foundation prior to them even saying we want to host a Pride event, and have eliminated all of the backlash after, because they would have been prepared to sort of stand on their principle, but handle it right and continue to push forward. And I think, in terms of examples from me, the biggest thing when I was an operator, and now as we're working with gyms, is the access around locker room and restroom usage for trans individuals. And all you have to do is Google. I mean, Planet Fitness just had a big blow up in Alaska. The YMCA has had a big blow up in the last year in San Diego. And there are just countless instances of trans folks trying to use the restroom or locker room that matches the gender that they identify with, and another member or a staff member who disagrees with that invading their privacy in a way that would turn anyone off from entering a fitness facility ever again. And those examples are just heartbreaking for me, because I lived in constant fear as someone who led a gym with the YMCA of that happening in my facility, because I just felt like we were always on the precipice of that happening, and that it takes 2 minutes before you're all over the news for all the wrong reasons because it was handled improperly. And just knowing the education that goes into facilities being prepared to handle it properly is just tells me that as an example, we're working with 400 gyms right now. Well, there's over 200,000 fitness facilities across the country. That's a small percentage, of folks who we're working with. And so how many more are just not prepared to handle that? Because I think I used to say that's sort of the next frontier, but the frontier is here, because a lot of times, especially with smaller independent gyms, they're not equipped to have a gender neutral restroom or a family gender neutral locker room type situation, or the facilities are old, or there's not the money to retrofit. And so I'm just thinking of the resources that are needed for places to be ready to welcome a segment of the community that doesn't feel safe currently, but also be ready to have their staff engage in those conversations and be equipped to handle those situations. It's such a need. It's the frontier now. It's not the next frontier. Like we are there. And I think in the future, what you'll see is this degendering of the locker room, in the sense that we change traditionally what we think of as the purpose of the locker room. And so I'm thinking like individual private shower stalls, as an example, a more open locker space where it is shared for everyone. It's not sort of this private, odd place that we see on like old school YMCA cruising videos and different things like that, but it's more open. I think that is, as we start to build new facilities and just change as a society, I'm hopeful that there is a degendering of those spaces to where that doesn't become an issue, but we're not there yet. And all you have to do is a Google search about, trans individuals in workout spaces to learn that it's still such a challenge for that community in particular.
We're going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back and talk about. We're not going to dig too deep into it because it's a very complicated topic. But I know that a lot of people have huge amount of confusion about this issue of gender identity, and usually it revolves around them not understanding the difference between gender and sex or biological sex. So we'll come back and talk about that in just a minute.
Hey, in just a little over 3 months, we will be heading to Hedonism Resort in Jamaica, January 4th through the 11th, for a full resort takeover called Be Better at Being Bad Week. This is what we call the fittest party in the lifestyle, but we're not just talking about physical fitness. We're talking about spiritual, mental, your relationship fitness, your sexual health. We are bringing in speakers from all over the world in all realms of fitness. We have sex therapists, we have nutritionists, we have communication coaches, we have a pelvic floor specialist, just somatic sexologists. We have worked
dominatrixes.
Oh, a dominatrix. We do.
Dominatrix.
We have workshops like being better at kink, how to give a better blowjob,
dirty talk,
anal play, but also self-regulation, how to talk to your partner about jealousy, just anything under the sun related to making yourself a better human being. So it's not sold out yet. There's still some rooms left. You go to hedonism.com to book and join us for the fittest week in the lifestyle.
And last year, it's such a great event if you are considering even the possibility of opening up your relationship in some fashion. Last year, over 50% of the people that attended our week it was their first time ever coming to hedonism. And, it was a great event for them because they got to pick the brains of some of the world's best experts on how to do this the right way.
And a lot of them rebooked while they were still at Hedo last year for this coming 2025 takeover. So don't wait, because this will sell out here in the next couple months. Then we have our El Salvador retreat, Escape to El Salvador, in May. That's fully booked out. We're bringing 32 couples with us for 5 days in paradise. You can still join the waiting list. You go to naughtygym.com. There's always a chance that somebody drops out, but this is a 5-star luxury resort. You can stay in one of the tree houses right on the ocean, black sand beaches. So naughtygym.com, click on the El Salvador retreat. And then we leave tomorrow to head to Dallas to talk with a guy about planning our Costa Rica fall retreat. If you haven't been to Costa Rica yet, it's our favorite place in the entire world. So we'll be announcing details of that soon. So stay tuned.
All right, so we're back with Paul from the Out Foundation, and we left off talking a little bit about gender and issues revolving around the bathroom facilities at organizations. We're actually starting to see some of this infiltrate, I like that word now, even things like restaurants where some of the big chains now, where it used to have male and female bathrooms, now just have a picture of both, like a little man and a little woman.
Or we'll just say bathroom.
Or bathroom.
Gender. Yeah.
So there is headway being made, but let's talk briefly about the confusion between gender and sex. Biological sex, while still not always a clear-cut thing, sometimes it's hard for a doctor to decide. And there's medical issues that people should familiarize themselves with, because it's not as easy as some people say, just pull down their pants and look at their genitals. It usually is that easy to identify biological sex, but there are a lot of cases where it's not. Gender is different. It is not as simple as just trying to identify genitals. Talk a little bit, Paul, about why there's that confusion and how people can maybe look at this the correct way.
Yeah. One of the things that I love to continuously point out when we're training gyms on this issue in particular, and we try to weave this into really all of our trainings just as an introductory thing, is that none of these things exist on a binary, as you said, like in terms of sex, gender expression, gender identity, who we are attracted to sexually, romantically. Nothing is on a binary. It's all on a continuum. And so if you can visualize these things on that continuum, with no one being all the way to one side, no one being all the way to the other side. And that also happens in sex assigned at birth, anatomical sex. And we spend a great deal of time in a couple of our trainings talking about intersex individuals, which are essentially individuals who are born with some portion of both sets of genitals. This intersex we see show up more often than folks with blue eyes or red hair, as an example. So it does exist in science, in society. There are intersex individuals who are with us. And so we see it show up. And so there are some folks who are explicitly assigned female at birth. There are folks who are explicitly assigned male at birth, and then we have intersex individuals as well. And so that really does speak to genitalia, anatomical sex, essentially. Gender identity, though, is chemical. And if you think about it in a sense of like a diagram that we use, where gender identity is up here, it's how you feel in your brain, your sense of womanness or manness, as an example. And so for folks who are trans, their gender identity doesn't match the sex that they were assigned at birth. So I may have female genitalia, as an example, but I identify as a male. My sense of manness, I'm more along that continuum. And so that's when we see, trans individuals who will transition from female to male, as an example, or the other way for male to female. And so I think it is important for folks to understand the difference in that, our trans community are folks who don't identify in their brain with the sex that they were assigned at birth. And so that if they are not able to be supported, if they are not able to express that, if they don't feel comfortable living their authentic selves, that's where some of these issues start to come into play, for the trans community in that they don't feel seen and supported as the gender in which they identify with. That's as simple as the restroom that they use, or other things. But I think it is important for folks to know that there is a difference in those two things. And then there are differences in how that gender is expressed. You may have someone who was assigned male at birth, identifies as a male, but expresses that gender more feminine than someone who identifies as more masculine, as an example. And all of these things exist on a continuum in the sense of nobody's one or the other completely. We're all on this sort of continuum.
And their gender identity isn't necessarily the same as their sexual identity. So you can
Right.
be a trans male and not be attracted to women or men. I mean,
Right.
it's just, there's no one.
Yeah. And it's yes, you can be trans and be heterosexual. I think there is sometimes this and some of it is a part of like this growing alphabet mafia which we have, which I love, but there's also some education that needs to take place, I think, for all of us, is that folks who are trans are not necessarily gay. In a lot of cases, they're not at all. Trans men are attracted to women. They would be straight, heterosexual. So the sexual attraction piece, like, that's a whole different sort of arm of the things that we're talking about, is the sexual orientation piece. And I think it's easy to convolute all of these things. And that is why those muscles have to be flexed in terms of continual education. We work in it every day at the Out Foundation, and I feel like I learn something new every day. I don't identify as part of the trans community. And so I have to do continual education on my part to try to learn what issues are affecting them, because, our struggle really is a shared struggle, but I think it's easy to convolute all of these things and sort of get them confused. And so that's why continual education is important for all of us.
And not only is that important, but I think it is important for us to all just get online. Don't Google why trans education is wrong. Don't look for what you already believe.
Yeah.
Google the exact opposite of what you think is true. If you're one of those people that's adamant that this whole gender thing is stupid and trans people shouldn't, if you think that way, don't isolate your intellectual pursuit to the things you already believe. Look for the best educators on the other side of the issue and read what they have to say. And better yet, instead of doing any of that, or before you do any of that, go to lunch with somebody that's trans. Get to know them. Have a conversation. There's this beautiful tapestry of difference in the world. And sometimes we just don't get exposed to it. And it's easy to demonize the people that we don't know very well.
I think that's our best education, is our friends who we know, who have opened up to us and allow us to ask the questions, because they know that we genuinely, number one, care, and we want to know. We want to help them. We want to normalize it and pave a way for them and give them safe spaces. And so don't be afraid to ask the questions.
Yeah, I totally agree. Harvey Milk is one of my heroes in the LGBTQ plus community. And a through line in all of his speeches and his work was that our power is in coming out, because we need people to see us as human beings first, and not as othered. And when we have those relationships, people become a lot more welcoming and a lot more open-minded when they have, oh, they're my friend, they're a human being first, they happen to be a part of the LGBTQ plus community, but I don't care, because I've built that relationship with them. And with that relationship comes that comfort of asking the questions that you're talking about in a respectful way, and doing that learning. It's so important. So important.
Yeah.
Well, so Naughty Jim wants to help raise funds for the Out Foundation. So we've created this program, and we hope everybody that's listening to this show will join it, because it will not only help raise funds for the Out Foundation, but you're going to get in better shape over the course of 4 weeks. And you may get to meet some people that you've never met before, or hear some educators that you've never heard before. It's $89 for 4 weeks. April, talk a little bit about what this PrideFlex program is.
Okay, so when you sign up, you'll be welcomed into our online platform. It's a private community that we've been running since 2020, but we've built out a challenge that is going to address your sleep, your eating, your mindset, and your movement, intentional movement. So every day you're going to be given a task in one of those regards, improving your sleep, improving your eating habits, improving your intentional movement, and improving your mindset. So this isn't like a diet program. We're not like giving you macros and telling you exactly what to eat each meal, but we're helping you change your habits, your daily habits. So at the end of those 4 weeks, you've built a solid foundation to move forward, to continue building those healthy habits. But you're also going to be in a very unique and open community where you'll have support from all of our coaches, from the other people who are participating in the challenge. You have an opportunity to win weekly prizes. It's just going to be, it's a fun way to get healthy.
And every day, or 6 days a week, we program all the we program all the workouts for the program. So every day inside our private community, and our community is not attached to any social media platforms. It is a completely private thing that can keep your identity safe if you're worried about any of that kind of stuff. But we do a workout each day, and it comes with 3 different variations. So it can be just body weight only, so you could do it while you're traveling or at your home. There is a dumbbell only version, and then there's a version that requires access to a full gym. There's also optional pieces each day, some sort of functional bodybuilding type stuff, some yoga and stretching. It really is a complete program. Each movement is linked to a demonstration video of one of our coaches doing that movement. There's coaches' notes telling you exactly what we're expecting out of you that day, how much effort and energy you should be expending. So it's really a turnkey program. And for 4 weeks, you're going to follow along right with everybody else that's in the program. You'll be able to communicate with people inside our platform. And as April talked about, it's just a great group of people. You have people that are in the LGBTQ community. You've got people in open relationships, polyamorous people. Anybody that's sex positive and open is inside our platform. And it's just a great opportunity for you to have fun, getting fit, and support a great cause over a 4-week period.
Yeah. So it starts October 14th and goes through November 11th. So we'll get you through the Halloween candy season and ready to take on the holidays with some healthy habits. It's all about balance.
And it's $89. And our goal is to use this to hopefully it will become the largest single fundraising effort in the history of the Out Foundation. But we do need a little over 200 people to join in order to meet that goal. So please, if you're listening to this, share go to our website or go to our social media. Actually, that would be the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
Go to our social media platforms at Naughty Jim or the Out Foundation and help share the posts, reach out to people that you know, and get some people involved. Paul, we really appreciate you coming on and talking to us about all this stuff. It's always great trying to get more educated about people that can be different from us, because that's a beautiful part of life, is realizing that we're all different, but we're all trying to be happy and fulfilled. And you guys do great work, and we really appreciate you letting us be a part of this fundraising effort.
Absolutely. And thank you guys for everything you're doing to raise awareness about our work as well. We really appreciate it.
All right. Well, again, guys, go to our website, our social media, join PrideFlex, help out this great cause. It starts here
October 14th.
October 14th, and we'll all have a little bit of fun together for 4 weeks.
All right. Thanks, Paul. It was good to see you. Thanks for listening to the
Thank you.
And remember to never stop playing.